Okay, so today I'm going to be working on a cryptid that I first heard about back in middle school. Now, I used to be absolutely fascinated by hybrid creatures of any sort, from urban legend to myth, and I would often draw a lot of characters with a person's body and a dog's face or a cat's face or even an ambiguous creature face, or with of course some of the body parts, or maybe a tail or some sort of claw hand-like appendage. It's really weird. Kids will be kids, I guess. When you're fascinated by something, you tend to explore everything about that, and this was no different for me. Now, as you can see, I started with the background first. After the sketch, of course. After getting away from the blank canvas, I decided to start with the background, mainly because I wanted to set up the atmosphere. I wanted it to be at night. Now, my idea here is going to be mainly to work on a shot of the Mothman on a highway, much like, or a callback to the first encounter with the creature, and of course a bit different. The Mothman really doesn't have those moth characteristics that I'm going to be adding on right now, but it's I just want to play on the real life tale about it, also adding some actual creature or insect-like characteristics. It'll be fun, I think. This is the first time I'm gonna be drawing said creature, but I think it's gonna be turning out pretty well. Next up, of course, is setting all the midtones down, all the values. Afterwards, just try to work with in the mid-range, nothing too dark, nothing too light, just so I can have some wiggle room and edit those as I go along. Maybe I'm gonna be wanting a bit more light here, a bit more light there. So just keep in mind, you don't want to, as I always say, you don't want to make anything too dark or go and apply the darkest dark or the lightest light right away. You want some contrast, but you always want to leave yourself some room for editing or improving here and there. Just make sure you give yourself that time in the future. Just set things up accordingly before that. Just keep it up, keep painting, play around with the tones and values and everything. Just keep that in mind. And just anyway, the wings I want to make semi-transparent. Ultimately, the goal here is to have some light shining from behind, so we're gonna have to have some brighter, lighter colors where the light's supposed to be filtering through a bit the wings, and of course that'll mean that the body in essence is gonna be more abstract, mainly because it's at night. Usually when you paint something at night, or you want to represent something at night, you want little detail, you want abstract brush strokes, you want to keep the form more ambiguous, just to play with the distortion that goes on in real life when there's darkness. Usually when you try to observe something at night, your mind, your eyes play tricks on you, and you start to perceive things that maybe aren't there, and it's a whole thing. So just try to do that, to make something more ambiguous, more abstract, as you darken it, or as you want to represent it in the dark. And now I'm gonna be working on the patterns of the wings. Mainly I want to have it be sort of eyes in the wings, as moths and some butterflies tend to have those patterns in said wings. So I'm going to be working with a few grays as I try to not stray too far away from this darkness, or there's light shining from behind, so the figure itself is kind of dark. I don't want absolutely anything that's too bright on the wings. Even though I am lighting up some parts, like I said, it's still a creature that's in darkness. That's why I started out with the atmosphere, with the blues behind, just to simulate nighttime. And you want to do something of the sort. Just try to keep yourself and your paint in a tone adequate to the, or in a value that's adequate for what you're trying to represent. Usually, as a rule of thumb, I tend to divide things into 3 values, just lights, mediums, and darks. And each one of those divided in 3 subsequent values also. Like, for example, I'll have a set of 3 lights, one lighter than the other, a middle light and a darker light, for so to say. With the mediums and dark tones also, I have a light medium, a neutral medium, and a dark medium. And of course, with the darks, I'm going to have a light dark, a medium dark, and a dark tone or value. And usually that's how I try to keep myself from straying too far away from the atmosphere or the creature or person or whatever there is I'm painting. That's how I keep myself in the coherent state, where I'm not gonna be adding a shadow where it doesn't belong, or a light where it doesn't belong. I try to keep it that way. So I divide it essentially into 9 values, from light to dark or dark to light. Yes, that's the way I do it. But certainly you can do it any way you want. My recommendation, I guess, would be to keep that in mind and try to plan out your values more so than your colors or your palette, because color, as long as you keep yourself within those values, those dark areas or those light areas or mid-tones or whatever, you can play around a lot with color and give it a bit more life, as long as you stay within that or within those limitations that you set for yourself. By now, as you can see, and getting back to the subject, I've already added the car, the headlights. I'm darkening the forest by the roadside, and just trying to add a bit more atmosphere. The lights, I applied with a bit of scumbled paint on it, so that it doesn't just feel like it's too much of the light color, and it'll play around better with the light, or I should say you'll play around better with how we perceive light at night. So I try to move the brush in such a way that basically the one whole side of my brush, it makes contact with the canvas in such a way as to maybe have it more parallel, so that the paint doesn't evenly cover the area, and that way we can just have a bit of playing around with the light. It's really weird. You really have to experiment with how you position or how you move your brush around the canvas, and find yourself with something that you're comfortable with, I guess. And I guess that's that. I'm pretty satisfied with how it turned out. Thank you.